Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to use IntelliJ. And once we install the Community Edition, I downloaded the Community Edition of IntelliJ. And once you launch it, it starts for the first time with something like this. So you can choose create a new project, and you can choose different types of projects. Right now we're just going to choose a traditional Java one. Make sure that there's an SDK available. If not, you can download the latest SDK, and you can just Google Java SDK and download the version 11 in this case. If you already had downloaded it and it's not detecting it, you can go into new and you can browse the path until you find this directory called bin. And usually it is on a path that is where the JDK is. In Windows, I believe that it's C, program files, Java, or JDK, and then continue browsing from there until you go into this file, and it's where the path of this bin is. Then you can click next, and we can do intro Java 3. This is our new project. Okay, so we get the tips. I'm going to cancel the tips, and then I'm going to close the window. These are good to know, but right now for this purpose, I just want to do a very basic example. So as we are creating a new Java class, we right click on the source directory right here, source directory, new Java class. And then we're going to do a hello world, and we can continue to fill in the traditional stuff like public, static, void, main, string args, the arguments from the command line. And then we can do a system.out.println, and we can do hello world. So the cool thing about IntelliJ is that it knows by default whenever there's this entry point function that you can just right click and on the file here and say run hello world.main, and that is going to compile and run the process, and you can see it here. But if you want to, this is exactly the same. Just right click and running is exactly the same as, let's see if I can see it on the terminal. Opening terminal. And now that we're in the terminal, we can do Java compiler hello world.java, and then Java hello world, and it's the exact same thing. So now you can see that there's two files. One is the compile.class file, and the other one the source file. So that's basically how to run some programs in Java. There's another thing that I would like to talk about, and that is about using the debugger. And the debugger is actually really important. And for using the debugger, I want to revisit a concept that we have talked in other videos, which is the passing by instance and passing by value. And this is where I'm gonna use the debugger to show you how to use the debugger, and at the same time knock two birds with one stone by proving the pass by value, the difference between pass by value and pass by reference. So we are going to create a class called pass by, and we're going to just create like public int value, and we're going to do a public int. We're gonna do a public int pass, actually public void pass by reference. And since we're gonna pass a reference, we're gonna pass an object. Our object, and at the same time we're gonna create a public void pass by value pass, and we're gonna pass an int value, and then public static void main string args, where we can just run our arguments. Okay, so what we're going to do in both of these functions, we're going to increment this value. So in this thing, we're gonna just value plus plus, and then in here we're gonna do obj.value plus plus. In both cases, we're gonna reference the same object. So if we did pass by object equals new pass by, and then we did object dot value equals 10. Let's set up an initial value of 10, and then we are going to try to pass by value, and we're going to pass object dot value, and then right after that we're going to print it just to see if it changed. After pass by value, and then we're going to do basically the same thing, but we're going to pass by reference, and we're going to just pass the entire object, and we are going to run this thing. And after pass by value, even though that we incremented the value, it didn't change. But after pass by reference, it did increment. So why is that? Well, this is where I want to start using the debugger. To use the debugger, you're going to go into the column right here, right next to the number, and you're going to click, and that will introduce a breakpoint. A breakpoint is nothing else other than where you're telling it the runtime to stop so that you can evaluate the variables. So if we go into right click the file and go into debug passby.main, we're gonna realize that it's stopping at this line, and it's telling us what is the current variables that we have here. We have received an argument, an empty args, which is empty. We have created an object called passby, an object called obj that it's referencing the internal reference passby at 897. And there's a value, obj.value equals 10. The controllers that you have here on the debugger, basically it is the step over, which is go to the next line of code. Step into, which means go into that function and let's evaluate it. Force step into, this is useful for whenever you have compiled code like println that is part of like the Java libraries and we don't have the source, so it would decompile it and go into it. And this one is step out, so that way when we are in a function and we have seen what we wanted to see, then we can step out and continue the execution. So in this case, we're gonna go into step into because we wanna see how pass by value is gonna pass this value here. Okay. At this point, we have received pass by value where it received a value of 10. At this point, the next line, it would increment it. Here, it's incremented, and then it's continuing to return to right after this. And this copy, because pass by value is passing a copy of a value, not the object. It's passing an entire copy. This copy will be discarded. Why is that? Because primitives, which is an int, a char, a byte, things like that, that it knows the length of the object, is a lot quicker to just copy the value and put it in a new memory cell. With an object, it's a whole different animal because you would have to deep copy all the references to it. So it's a lot easier and faster for your runtime to just pass the address that references that object. And that's the difference between passing by value, which is passing a copy, and passing by reference, which is passing a copy of the address of where your object lives. So it doesn't matter if you pass a copy of the address or an address per se, it's the same value, it's the same pointer at, and that's what you're going to be modifying. So in this case, this one, after we execute value plus plus and we return here, that variable is discarded. So obj.value remains 10 because this is a copy when it went in that was a copy of the value, was manipulated and then later discarded. So that's why when we print this line, which is what it's saying after passed by value, it's printing 10. In the case of going into pass by reference, we're going to be passing the address passed by at 897, and you're going to see that this doesn't change once we go into that context. So we are inside of the context, we can see because it's waiting on this line, where it received object passed by 897, and then is going to modify the value that is being referenced by that guy. So pass by reference is going to modify that by reference. So now it is 11. It modified this value right here, and then it's going to come back down. This value was not really discarded. What was discarded was the memory address, or the copy of the memory address, but the object, because it's being referenced in this context, it's still not discarded by the garbage collector. So when we get to this line, the obj value is 11. And once you're done using the debugger, because the debugger is just waiting for you to tell it what to do, you can either continue the execution, which is this guy here, or simply stop the debugger process. I hope this video taught you more than just how to use the IDE, but clarified some of those things about passing by reference and passing by value. See you next time.